Let's take a look at the parts of a right triangle. In a right triangle, the two sides adjacent to the right angle are known as the legs, or A and B of the triangle. These are your legs, A and B. A and B are interchangeable. The side opposite of the right angle is called the hypotenuse. This is the side opposite the right angle. It is known as the hypotenuse. And we use the letter C to represent the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the opposite side. The hypotenuse is always the longest side of a right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem tells us how the side lengths of a right triangle are related. In any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse, c squared, is always equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. The relationship can be represented by the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Let's look at the right triangles below and identify the longest sides as the hypotenuse c and the shorter sides, the legs, as a and b. In this triangle, this is your longest side. It is also opposite the right angle, so it is C. So I'm going to identify the hypotenuse first. It is opposite the right angle, and it is always the longest side in a right triangle. The other two sides are called the legs of the right triangle, and we use the letters A and B. What is the Pythagorean theorem? The Pythagorean theorem is when the sides of three squares come together to form a right triangle. And this is what we did in our previous activity in the Explore activity. What is true about the squares of Pythagorean theorem? The area of the small square plus the area of the medium square equals the area of the large square. Let's take a look at the example model squares below to determine if the sides of these squares will form a right triangle. What we need to do is find the smallest side lengths, and that will be A and B. This represents a square, so its side length is 8. So the two smaller sides lengths are 6 and 8. The longer side is 10. So A equals 6, B equals 8, and the hypotenuse C equals 10. So we'll use the Pythagorean theorem to determine if the sides of these squares will equal a right triangle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. 6 squared plus 8 squared, does that equal 10 squared? 36 plus 64 equals 100. Therefore, the side lengths of these squares form a right triangle.